For over 2 years now, Israel has been carrying out more intensified, extremely violent reprisals against Palestine in retaliation against the so-called Al-Aqsa flood, when Palestinian National Liberation Forces struck against Israel on October 7, 2023. The attack shattered the illusion that Israel is invincible, that its intelligence services are omniscient, that it cannot be attacked, and it gave a terrible blow to Israel's prestige. So the Zionist regime, filled by chauvinist and class hatred, feels it must carry out these reprisals. In this retaliation, the Israeli Zionist regime has killed approximately 80,000 Palestinians, according to many sources, though the real numbers might be even higher. On September 7th, 2025, Israel attacked the around 58 vessels from the global Sumud flotilla, which were delivering humanitarian aid to Gaza, which is blockaded by Israel. And although Israel has attacked aid delivery ships and humanitarian aid workers in the past too, it has now ramped up this policy. These actions by Israel are deliberately genocidal, destroying all the utilities and infrastructure of an area, all the power plants, water supply, hospitals, food production, and then to blockade it and to prevent anybody from delivering food and medical supplies to that area is completely genocidal and indefensible. It's very difficult to interpret it as anything else. Though the imperialists often talk about human rights and crimes against humanity, there is currently probably no greater crime against humanity than what Israel is doing, and no greater criminals than the Israeli regime and its most powerful backers, the American government. Ever since the conflict between Israel and Palestine began decades ago, it has been about the right of the Palestinian people to national self-determination and a decent life on the one hand, and the Israeli regime's attempt on the other hand to steal all of Palestine's land and exterminate, enslave, or deport all the Palestinians. Lenin said that there are just and unjust wars. Wars to liberate oneself are just, and wars to enslave others are unjust. Israel is fighting to steal Palestinian land and to enslave the people, while Palestine is fighting for its freedom. So the Palestinian National Liberation Movement is just, while Israel's actions are unjust, except in the opinion of the imperialists. Regardless of any other details, that is the fundamental issue at hand. People want to talk about specific instances, who did this, who did that, but that is fundamentally a distraction. The responsibility for the bloodshed is ultimately entirely Israel's, because they have caused this situation by their imperialist settler colonialist policy, and if they were to stop it, the situation would be solved. Israel claims that it must defend itself, but this has never been about Israel carrying out self-defense. Why did the Al-Aqsa flood take place? Ultimately, because Israel is trying to exterminate the Palestinians and to conquer their country. It's completely evident. Why is Israel now carrying out these genocidal atrocities? For the same purpose. None of the excuses by defenders of Israel can cover up these blatantly evident facts. Now, to think about it from Israel's perspective, they say they feel threatened. But of course an occupying colonialist force would feel itself threatened by the indigenous population. Of course it feels like they have to defend themselves because they are quote-unquote threatened. But go to any country, oppress them, steal their land, and yeah, they'll threaten you. When the Nazis occupied various European countries and parts of the USSR, they also felt threatened by the local inhabitants. Even in Finland they felt threatened, although the resistance movement was much smaller. The Nazis, when they were occupying various European countries and parts of the USSR, they felt they need to carry out extermination campaigns to purge and pacify various areas to make them safe for the new settlers who were to take over and who were desiring to enslave the indigenous people. The Nazi plan, after all, was to basically implement a settler colonial system mainly in the USSR after defeating the Soviet forces, which of course, fortunately, failed. So Israel's notion that they must defend themselves or that they have some kind of right to defend themselves is an identical notion. But at the same time, the colonizers, which is what Israel is, they face an impossible task, because they can never truly pacify the area. Look at history. Were the British ever able to pacify any of their colonies in the long term? Or any of the other colonizers? Were they able to pacify China? No. Throughout the 1800s and especially the 1900s, there were countless mass uprisings by the locals. Were they able to pacify India? No. Were the Americans able to pacify Vietnam and make the Vietnamese people simply surrender and accept their fate? No. The Vietnamese fought back until the Americans left, and that's that. Is the average American threatened by the average Vietnamese? No. But if the American soldiers go to Vietnam to commit genocide, then, yeah, those American troops would feel threatened. Were the Nazis able to pacify France or Czechoslovakia or the USSR? No. The population made the country very dangerous for the Nazis and didn't give them any peace, and the colonizers had to constantly worry about the hostility of the people. The same is the case with Israel's conquest in Palestine. And the American invaders in Vietnam and the German Nazi invaders in Europe and the USSR, they also committed countless atrocities in order to try to break the population's will to resist, to smash the people, to exterminate them. But did it work? No. It only created more resistance. It's a strange dialectic of history, but it's true nonetheless. Every honest Frenchman hated the Nazi invaders and occupiers. Every honest Ukrainian and Russian hated the Nazi occupier. Every honest Vietnamese hated the Yankee invader. And every honest Palestinian person hates Israel just the same. Not every Israeli, but the state of Israel and what it's doing. It's really not super complicated. Why the Palestinian National Liberation Movement has been going on for so long, why it has such deep roots in the masses, it's because of these very real material circumstances. It's not because of any identity, it's not because of Islam, it's not because of any other reason. It's because occupation creates resistance, inevitably. Israel can try to carry out its genocide, it can destroy the water supply, destroy all the power plants, schools and hospitals, but does that mean that the Palestinians will simply accept slavery and surrender? No, they will not, because the oppressed, they always have a real interest to try to fight against oppression. Sometimes facing completely overwhelming repression, the masses can be temporarily smashed and marginalized, but in the long term the resistance will always continue, as long as the oppression continues. All of Israel's atrocities can only cause the Palestinian people to unite against Israel more firmly. There's a very high level of unity among the Palestinian masses, and nearly all national liberation organizations, Marxist and otherwise, collaborate. Israel can, of course, cause terrible losses to the people's forces, but in the end, where one falls, 10 will take his place. Israel has been trying to destroy Palestine's will to resist since the 1940s, and they haven't been able to do it, and it's not likely that they'll succeed in the future either. On the contrary, the actions of Israel in the past 2 years have further increased the solidarity for the Palestinian liberation struggle around the world. In my limited experience, I would say that it's somewhat exceptional that the protests in favor of Palestine have continued for this long. There have been protests in the past too, but these current ones have been going consistently for 2 years already. The consciousness of the masses has increased, and it is now much more widely understood that Israel is waging an imperialist policy of genocide. It is extremely important that we in other countries also support the protest movement against Zionism and in favor of Palestine's liberation struggle. Material aid to Palestine and political support to Palestine and against Israel all benefit the national liberation, which is part of the worldwide revolutionary process against capitalism and imperialism. We in the different countries of the world must also oppose our own governments supporting Israel. Many imperialist governments, especially the US, still do everything in their power to defend Israel even from all criticism. But the imperialist Finnish government also refuses to recognize Palestine and refuses to stop arms trade with Israel. The Finnish president last year defended the decision to buy weapons from Israel, and in August of this year the Finnish defense minister stated that, quote, "The situation in Gaza won't affect Finland's arms trade with Israel," unquote. Israel gains close to $100 million annually from arms trade with Finland, and nearly $1 billion in the past decade. This clearly exposes the nature of the Finnish imperialist state and other imperialist powers such as the US and the strongest imperialist power in the EU, Germany, who still strongly support Israel.